Welcome to this audio session recording taken at the Agroforestry Show, which was organised in September 2023 as a partnership between the Woodland Trust and the Soil Association. For more session recordings, go to agroforestryshow.com or explore and subscribe to the Agroforestry Show YouTube channel. Enjoy!
We're hearing from Abacus Agriculture. I'll let Steve introduce himself in a bit, and what's going on at the Centre for Agroecology, Water and Resilience, which is a research site, a part of Coventry University. And as I said, really within this session, we want to give you a quick run through of some of the research and the work that we're doing that we think is interesting and innovative and related to agroforestry and all things trees. And then we really want to break out. I'm thinking we'll probably have 3 groups and hear from you, get your ideas, and work on some participatory research needs from practitioners such as yourselves. Because, you know, it's really important for us as researchers to be listening to practitioners and developing these projects in collaboration with you all. As I said, I'm Rosemary at Coventry, my colleague Ulrich Schmutz and Stephen Newman, who will introduce themselves later. A little bit more about me. My focus is really looking at the kind of democratisation and transformation of the food system through agroecological principles, of which agroforestry, I think, is one. And when we talk about agroforestry, I want to challenge us all to think a bit more deeply, not just get some trees in the field, but think a bit broader. How can we be thinking about some of the bigger systemic food system issues within that? Anyway, enough from me for now. I'm going to hand over to Stephen Newman, who's going to be chatting to you about the barriers and opportunities to upscaling agroforestry. Thanks.
Thanks for turning up. So that's the title then. Abacus then is a group of farmers helping other farmers, basically. Stephen Briggs, you probably all heard of. He's the gang leader. And we're there trying to expand on agroforestry and help with agroforestry, among other things. It's a picture of Walnut Agroforestry in France. So let's move on. Would like to acknowledge for this talk the help of the Hampshire County Council Forest Partnership. We've got a contract with them at the moment to look at doing agroforestry at the county scale. Very interesting work. But none of the stuff in here is the views of Hampshire County Council. There's just myself and Steve Briggs, really. So if you're in Hampshire, please get in touch, because there's a lot of help going to be available for you to do agroforestry on a very large scale, and a lot of flexibility, so they can add things that the Forestry Commission or the Woodland Trust can't contribute. So they're going to be a big player. This will be the first county where agroforestry is going to be done in a joined up way at scale. Right, what are the barriers today then that we face? There are lots of barriers why agroforestry isn't happening everywhere. The first is advice. You know, so many advisors have sprung up. It's chronically dominated by NGO instant experts. They're very dangerous, and also lots of risk-averse agents as well. Well, don't do that, it's not proven, you know, it's not forestry. From a forestry perspective, you know, you can't do this or you can't do that. You know, they actually mean a timber perspective, so there's a complete abuse of the language in many areas. Advice is a major, major problem. Lots of advice. We get a lot of work clearing up the mistakes of others. A lot of work. Very serious mistakes. Costs. If you're going to do agroforestry, you know, it's expensive. Your trees have got to pay the rent. That's the whole point of agroforestry. It should work without subsidy. So if the trees are going to pay the rent, you need to look after them. So you're looking at £40 to £60 a unit to do things where you're going to get a significant financial return. You economise on that at your own cost. Exemplars. Well, very few things at scale in England. We're at least 20 years behind China, India, and other countries. We're working at a piddling level of expenditure, minute scales. We're 20 years behind the curve. You know, so in China, we planted 10 million hectares of Paulownia and wheat, and it's still expanding. They see the benefits, they do it quickly. So the only exemplar we've got at scale in Hampshire is the New Forest, 60,000 hectares. That's the biggest agroforestry system in England. Subsidies, well, for me, there's a mental health warning, really. We should avoid them like the plague. The hidden cost is that it stops you thinking properly and thinking clearly about your business. Might seem like worthwhile, but generally the work in New Zealand has shown you're better off without them. So here we go again. You know, Elms looks possible, and there's lots of discussions. Biodiversity net gain, lots of discussions. Public payment for public goods, whatever that means. So, you know, we've got a climate change crisis and a biodiversity disaster. We should have stopped all these discussions a very long time ago and come up with something quite straightforward. You know, so the good news was the Scottish have actually understood things and are putting it in the hands of farmers so they can make it work about how to do government grants. Less intervention, more leaving it to the farmer to take the risk. Procurement, this is a missed opportunity. So when my company helped develop the Forest Stewardship Council, the key driver in reform was government procurement rather than policy or procedural reform. So if they specified no spray food, that would completely boost agroforestry. If they specified timber grown, you know, under agroforestry conditions, that would boost it. With their procurement power, they could completely affect the unlevel playing field. This is an opportunity that's totally missed. You know, if we could feed all the prisons and the hospitals in Kent through agroforestry, through procurement, that would dramatically change the whole system and reduce the dominance of the players with toxic business models. Solutions. Well, the main solution for agroforestry is linear. The linear features are the most important. In China, it's called four-square planting. So especially oaks, we're going to talk about oaks for making flour. We can reduce the carbon footprint of bread by incorporating oak acorn flour. Hawthorn for drinks is a major thing in China. It's the number one soft drink. Cricket-bat willow as part of flooded meadow corridor creation. Cricket-bat willow exports are going up like a rocket. £4 million last year to India alone. Changes in the trade tariffs. Interest in cricket in California. Women's cricket. This is a massive market developing. Scale. We need to involve major state landowners. We need to involve pension funds. My work with Fountain Forestry over the years showed that the pension funds are incredible at reform. They can put serious money, you know. So the kind of agroforestry project investment, we should be looking at 100 million. Impact investors as well, because we can deliver very simple indicators, smart indicators for social impact. Target officers, target audience. We need to work with tree strategy officers, especially at county level. We need flexibility of approach, and maybe the county can give us that, as distinct from state regulatory bodies. Food and beverage entrepreneurs are key drivers. They are the main driver that should be driving the process, because you need a contract to do sensible agroforestry. It's too complicated for one organisation to do on its own. New partnerships form. So globally, my other company, we just spent $1 billion in Bangladesh with coastal resilience work, and we have nature recovery partnerships, very clear partnerships, operating at scale. Carbon synergy partnerships. That means the reason you're coming together is that you want to make more profit working together than working alone, but you're only allowed in the room if you're going to reduce your carbon footprint. So very strategic ways of facilitating partnership. Agroforestry is a nature-based solution. Peri-urban food forests, that's a massive area of growth, especially in Holland. Carbon negative forest villages, talking with a client yesterday making £135,000 a hectare from their forest. Howardian economics, that's something that was developed in 1892, which is the most relevant thing you could ever imagine. And spatial planning. Spatial planning and spatial opportunity is the key. Right, this is the map of what could happen at the possible county level. This is what's called a key diagram. Very important graphic. So this shows the link between policy and procedural reform and spatial opportunity. So you've got, very simply there, you've got key spatial opportunity zones, the peri-urban area. If we could reduce care costs by 5% at the county level, we're talking tens of millions of pounds liberated. So access to green space, well-being, that's a key driver. And this is the spatial opportunity, showing where people need to travel to improve well-being. This is a key part of agroforestry, health and well-being benefits. We've got other policies on the linear planting. So just by saying, can we plant trees at 5 metre spacing along all linear features, 10 million trees could be planted tomorrow. There's linear features are the way. So that's working with the transport department. And look at these policies are all linked to the statutory responsibilities of the county. Nature recovery zones. In Hampshire, the key thing is the rivers. You've got the River Test and the River Itchen. So we need to look at wooded meadows, silver pastoral systems along that riparian area, integrate them with reeds to clean the rivers and also to decontaminate the land. We now understand that we're in the business of decontamination, and agroforestry and linked myco-remediation is a key strategy. So this is the thinking at nature-based solution level. We're moving well away from the idea of this is something you do in your plot. Right, so climate change resilience market estimates that we're going to tap into. So the current level of UK pension funds is in excess of 3 trillion. That's the scale of money that we've got available for climate change resilience. So that puts in perspective all these silly government schemes. 3 trillion is available for that. So what are people doing with their pension funds? Ministry of Defence, major landowner. What are they doing with their pension funds? And how could that be invested in their land-based portfolio? The railways, the church, the whole lot. This is the key area where we're going to get the money from, the pension funds. State agency land assets worth over 3 billion. The Forestry Commission's got a lot of land without trees on it, and it's just sitting on it without any clear idea of the way forward. We can show them how to use that land for multiple social benefits through partnership. Impact and carbon funds over 1 billion. So these are the kind of numbers that we need to cope with the climate change emergency and the biodiversity catastrophe. These are real things. This is not slow development. We need urgent emergency action. So I left Kent with the news that we'd lost £1 million off the Gala apple crop because of loss of pollination. Nearly all of the people growing apples are ready to grub them up. It's just becoming a waste of time. They're all moving into wine growing. I drove from my house in Faversham all the way up here, and I think there were 3 or 4 flies on my windscreen. I used to collect flies, all hover flies and all species of insects in a farm garden in 1976 with a Malaise trap. Every week I'd take off the sample, it would look like blackcurrant jam. Now there's a catastrophic loss in insect biomass, already making a massive economic impact. So these are catastrophes. These are not slow things to deliberate on. We need to do action. So these are the financial targets that we're coming up with when we have optimised systems with the very best planting material done in the right way in the right place. So we've got cricket bat willow, capable of yielding £70,000 a hectare in year 12. No subsidy, very simple system. This is serious money. These are profitable trees. Multiple benefits, but I just want to talk about profit at the moment. We've got hazel, £70,000 per hectare. But this is not growing hazel like you've ever seen it. This is single-stem trees with mechanical harvesting, with the right varieties in the right place. The Howardian economics we're using to create forest villages. This is where we link restoration of 1,000 acres through carbon-negative development on 20 acres. So that's a paper that I published in the Town and Country Planning Association Journal. So that's where we're looking at an annual income of £11.5 million per village forever, under the control of the community. So this is the kind of resilience fund that we need. This is just at the village level. So 30 acres, built on 1,000 acres. Right, so very quickly to go through the UK research needs. Here we come up with the most important species. You know, I was involved in a lot of the early agroforestry research. We used those species because of hypotheses. Now we're looking at them in terms of financial benefit. So the most important agroforestry species is oak for acorns, for acorn flour and other products. Mulberry is also up there. That's an incredible fodder and a very high value fruit crop. Quince is an incredible tree that I think it's got aerenchymatous roots because we're growing it in flooded areas. So this is incredible restoration and bioengineering tree. So I've been working with Wilkins Jam Factory on this, and it's incredible. Quince is a good product. Hawthorn, not the one that you're familiar with, but the ones with a very large fruit, has incredible health benefits connected with lowering blood pressure. Walnut is incredible. We've got remarkable yields from the latest varieties of walnut, nearly equal to hazel in terms of the financial return you get from it, if it's the right trees in the right place under the right management. Stone pine looks promising. That's the most valuable tree nut in the world per unit weight. Almond, sweet chestnut. And I'd also add now Gleditsia tricanthus. We're also looking at the fodder trees. Honey locust and carob have got incredible potential to supply protein as well as carbohydrate. So these are the new trees. We need to move on, you know, from the ones we've been studying. That's where all the money should be placed. So we need the Forestry Commission to invest in oak development to improve precocity. It's nothing to do with timber, it's to do with the acorns. They're the most valuable thing. The timber could be a byproduct. Agroecology. We really need to study climate change properly with trees and move away from this crazy area of sequestration. We need to look at trees in the role of climate change, not just sequestration and all the cowboys selling carbon offsets. The most important things that trees do is to give off methyl sulfide, which actually attracts rain and changes the whole nature of the climate. We need to look at methyl salicylate as an organic volatile. That's a way that the trees can communicate with the animals and the plants. So we're missing most of this monitoring in terms of the role of trees in climate change. We focus far too much on carbon. It's ridiculous. Tree proximity mechanisms. We're seeing some incredible things at Steve Briggs' farm and elsewhere where we get massive yield increases close to the tree of arable. Why is that? The same with pasture. Why are we getting these increases? It doesn't fit with our old mechanisms of competition. Shade trials. Potatoes, if we want to feed people today, potatoes is the way. We don't want to be growing arable crops. Potatoes is the most efficient way of feeding people. Even on standard varieties, we can shade potato 27% without reducing yield. Hemp, herbs, spices, nutraceuticals. We can have no spray orchards by introducing members of the Alliaceae in the alleyways, such as wild garlic. That will keep scab and powdery mildew at bay. Similarly with vineyards. Yeah. Right. The whole paradigm should be no spray. Unfortunately, we've been failed by the organic movement. They still allow organic fruit to get the label when they're spraying Bordeaux mixture. This is crazy. So we can use no spray systems, wild garlic, and there's lots of other ways of dealing with it. More resilient varieties. Maybe a reassessment of grafting itself, maybe that's making them less resilient. So we've got a whole way of looking at no spray. New products, nut milks, very important. New systems, agroforestry vineyards we're working with at the moment. Tree-enhanced rewilding, silver aquatic systems, incorporating floating gardens. Establishment, harvesting and marketing. Direct seeding of oaks, we need to look at that. So that's the team. So that's the test if you're awake. That's Bess. She's been heavily involved in learning to be a truffle hound, which we found in the Great Storm of '87, Kent is full of truffles when the trees blew over. So hopefully she'll be a major contributing partner. Summary, we need to see agroforestry in a far larger context. UK climate change resilience will cost billions. We need to bear that in mind. UK nature recovery will cost a similar amount. Agroforestry is ideally placed to be a key nature-based solution at scale. So I urge agroforesters to move from the plot scale and subsidy thinking to county and national scale bankable projects without subsidy. We've got various projects underway where we can fund demo farms, we can fund training of advisors. So if you're interested in this stuff, please contact Abacus. These are 7-year programs with a lot of money attached. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, and that's the textbook, Temperate Agroforestry Systems. I've been commissioned to do the 3rd edition, and I'll be the lead editor on that. So we're looking for authors and contributors to the textbook on temperate agroforestry systems. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to, myself and my colleague Ulrich are going to give you a very super quick overview of 3 ongoing research projects we have at the Centre for Agroecology. But it's just going to be a whistle stop. If any of them, pique your interest, do come and find us later. We've spoken to many of you already on the stalls, and then we do really want to get into breakout sessions. So the first project that I'm going to speak to you about briefly is AgroMix. So this is a European Commission funded project. It's a 4-year project. We're in year 3, so we finish at the end of next year. We've got a lot of current research online available, and really AgroMix is looking at the transition to mixed farming and agroforestry, and how can we facilitate farmers, land managers and landowners in that transition. And to do that, we look at a number of different, what we call landscapes, thinking really about the socio-economic, the political, the technological aspects of this land use transition. We've got a number of different test and trial sites across Europe and the UK, Wakelands being one of them. It's a really interesting group of people, 27 partner organisations across the EU. I'm just going to quickly flag one of the aspects of the project that I'm working on. So we're looking at some of the tools that we can help develop in collaboration with farmers. And one of those is an agroforestry knowledge base, a tree choice database. And we're collaborating with a company called Landfiles, who already have a huge community of agroforesters, primarily in France, using this network. And we're working with them to build that to create an agroforestry database and peer-to-peer network. And that's different. I know there's lots of tools out there. We're really trying to learn from everyone and include people. But it's really developing solutions and helping farmers. So farmer to farmer, peer-to-peer networking, peer-to-peer learning, and developed so that users can generate content themselves, so that you can say, I've tried, this species with this rootstock, it didn't work, I'm here, this is my site characteristics, what would you recommend? So really trying to build that knowledge gap that we've seen. Unfortunately, this is now an incorrect QR code, so don't scan this. If you're interested in being involved in that, then come and see me later. I've got the correct QR code that you can scan, and we're going to be launching the first prototype just before Christmas this year, and we would really value input from people who will be using these tools. So that's all I'm going to say about Agromix. If you want to know more, come and find me later. And I'm going to hand over to Ulrich, who's going to talk to you very briefly about two projects, Growing Connections and Under Trees, and then we'll turn into a breakout session and get your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, that's click. So as we said, so my name is Ulrich Schmutz. I'm a professor at Coventry University. So that's kind of my final career step. Next one is retirement or death, whatever comes earlier. We just wanted to go quickly through some of these projects. So one of them is Growing Connections, and there was already a session earlier about tree nurseries. And you should say something. You are in charge of it. Just say at least your name.
Hi, my name's Liz. He's put me on the spot here. My name's Liz Trenchard, and this is our project. Mine and Sam and Gabriele are working on this project. It's called Growing Connections. It's about researching community tree nurseries, looking at their place in the market, look at who buys from community tree nurseries, looking at how sustainable they might be, whether there's a place for them in the tree production sector, and how best to support them doing that. So if anyone wants to find out more, we have some postcards we can share with you, or come and have a chat with us if you've got time.
And the next project is another one. It's called Under Trees, and this is also a European Union funded project. So I would want to say, because you've heard that maybe in a session earlier, so the UK is now eligible to be leading Horizon projects again. And a lot of our work at Coventry University has been funded by the EU. And that's also because the EU is at least a little bit ahead, I would say, in organic farming. That goes in our area. I think it's not really ahead in agroforestry. You said agroforestry is ahead in other parts of the world. I totally agree with that. So we are behind the curve. But at least we are behind with some other people as well. Under Trees is about another project, which is about the integration network of agroforestry, especially with the focus on ecosystem service assessment. And that already leads me to the main part of your input now. So as I said, we have been funded by the European Union a lot, and that's good. And we also get funding in the future. But other European countries have also their own funding schemes. So, for example, the French have their own scheme on top of the European funding. So what I want from you now, in a way, to get more ideas, what should we in England or Wales or UK, probably most of it will be England, what should we fund in terms of research? What are the research needs? And what kind of research program can we build on that? So just to give you the numbers, this is a 1.5 million project. The other one was 7 million. We have another one, Organic Plus, that was 4 million. So we got a lot of funds from the European Union for that, which is obviously goes through the UK pays into it. But what, in addition, can be done in this country? What are the specific needs? These projects are, in a way, quite big. You put it very positive, lots of partners, but if we are running it, they're quite unwieldy. Judith was the project manager, if you want to know a bit more of another previous project. And they are good, but they are not really small enough to be targeting specific issues you may have, and this is too difficult for us to pack them into a very big project where you have to have 7 million and 24 partners. So I'm looking for a more smaller, targeted project, and for that I'm looking for your inputs. And I think that was my part in terms of the introduction, where you come in, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to get into groups. I think. Any questions on the presentations?
It's all provocative. I suppose I would be doing my colleagues a disservice if I didn't say we need to be very careful about the invasiveness of some of those species you put up there.
Yeah. So that's a very important point. So that's a constant monitoring thing, and so we've got things like Robinia pseudacacia, which is invasive on a lot of other things, which is still not invasive here as far as I'm aware. So that's a key thing. All of these things have got to be tried with caution, and a lot of them, things like the hazel, it's still the same species. We're just managing it differently, and we're trying to select varieties. So, but I take your point. All of this needs to be taken with caution and small trials. If you're going to introduce a new species, obviously you need to go through the regulations and tests. Any other questions or issues? And I mean, most of them, it's just our native species, but trying to add a bit more value by management or varietal improvement, or changing the economic part that we thought was important. Yes.
I'm Owen. I work for a startup called Gaia, and I was reading a book by Michael Pollan I think it's called The Botany of Desire, and he was talking about how the apple tree had been sort of bred and like the genes of it sort of chosen for what we like. But I read in that oak has been like famously impossible to domesticate because its genes never do what we want them to do, or something. Like I couldn't really fully grasp exactly the science behind it, but I've heard basically like you can't do that much with oak in terms of like trying to selectively breed it for things. So when you said earlier on that oaks, like breeding oaks for certain things might be a big thing in the future, I just wondered if how like logistically possible that might be.
Yeah, that's a very important question. That's to do with breeding strategy, whether we're going in the right direction through breeding. What we need with oak is a citizen's experiment, where every school plants a load of acorns and you just let them grow and you observe the precocity. Precocity means it'd be wonderful to get the acorns after 3 or 4 years. So they can select that, and then we can try to collect those and through selection rather than breeding. So Bramley's seedling, that's one of our most important areas. That was just, again, someone observing what's going on in nature. That was an apple that fell into a lady's garden, and wow, what an incredible apple. So there's lots of breeding strategies, but I think, Andrew, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, on the oaks, there's been some work on that in that very area with white oak, looking at precocity involving the University of Missouri and a nursery nearby in Missouri, actually been very successful. And I think there are signs that precocity is inherited.
Yeah. So, and the reason why this is so important is that the average loaf of bread has a carbon footprint of over 1 kilo of CO2. And most of that is actually because of the wheat. Because when you grow wheat, you're getting oxides of nitrogen in the field. And that's a real problematic greenhouse gas. So if we can reduce the amount of wheat in a loaf by putting in chestnut flour or acorn flour, you're dramatically reducing the carbon footprint. Of course, if it got increased woodiness and soil organic matter in the agroforestry system, you're going even further. So hopefully the target would be a carbon negative loaf of bread, which is a great symbol to work towards. But this is the way to think, and you're right, so all the breeding of the commercial apples, like there's so many other things, it's made them spray dependent, we've gone in completely the wrong direction. All the research had the wrong framework, selecting the wrong things, not only the breeding programme but orchard management. You know, the regulation was spray all the grass in the orchard floor. The average commercial orchard now is spraying every week.
Talking about research, I'm going to stop questions now. If you've got more questions, come to us at the end. I'm conscious of time. So I'm going to split us into, I think, maybe 4 groups. And if I can have a volunteer from Coventry to facilitate the 4th group, that would be great. There's a document on your table. So let's have one group here, these 2 tables, another group here, these 2 tables. Oh, well, maybe we're fine with 3, actually. And actually, no, we're not. And then this table here, and you guys at the back, you're another group. And then you 2 tables, you're another group. And basically, your facilitator's going to take notes. And we want to know from you, what are your research needs? You can be as broad, you can be as specific as you want. I'm going to click on, there are a few suggesting points here if your mind has gone blank because it's so hot. But I'm sure you've got lots of ideas, and we do really want you to just, you know, what are your research needs
so you
at
take
whatever
that.
scale, at the farm scale, at the landscape scale. And we've got 20 minutes. Thank you all for participating. And our facilitators will be capturing the discussions. And if you want to be kept in the loop with what happens, then give me your email address and I can be in touch. And I really appreciate both of my speakers, Steve and Ulrich, and Liz. Thank you for stepping in and helping to facilitate that. And thank you all for your ideas and inputs. And thanks everyone at this amazing conference for all of your hard work, and especially all of the team behind the scenes that have been really helpful. So thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you for listening. We'd like to thank our lead sponsor, Sainsbury's, and our other major sponsors, Farmers Weekly Transition, Forestry Commission, and Till Hill, and all the attendees for making this show such an overwhelming success. To get advice and support for your agroforestry project, either visit woodlandtrust.org.uk/plant or soilassociation.org/agroforestry.